Well, butter my biscuit and call me a pancake. Looks like my plans went down the drain faster than a hairball in a bathtub. What in tarnation is happening, y'all? It's your boy Michael from Nocturnal Simulations here to make a mess of things, and hopefully prevent you from doing the same. Do you struggle with short-filled landings? Always find yourself upside down or smacking to a tree like Tarzan? Well, stay tuned because I've got some tips for you to improve your bush flying landings. Short-filled landings require specific adjustments to your approach and landing technique in order to ensure a safe touchdown and stop on the runway. This is particularly important when dealing with a short runway or an obstacle near the end of it. In order to execute a successful short-filled landing, it is crucial to maintain complete control over your airspeed and descent rate. This means staying stabilized, maintaining your proper speed, and staying on the correct glide path. By doing so, you can ensure that you touch down in the desired location, prevent your aircraft from floating down the runway, and come to a complete stop well before you run out of runway. It all begins with your approach, arguably the most important part of the entire process when it comes to executing a successful landing. The Airplane Flying Handbook advises pilots to fly a slightly wider traffic pattern than usual, allowing enough time to properly configure their aircraft and establish a stable approach. While this isn't a strict requirement, it's a wise practice to adopt. The more time you have to stabilize, the higher the likelihood of a smooth landing. In addition, there are several other factors to keep in mind while flying your approach. For instance, if your aircraft's pilot operating handbook, the POH, doesn't specify a final approach speed, it's recommended you fly with full flaps and at 1.3 times the stalling speed in landing configuration, your VSO speed. As an example, if your plane's VSO is 50 knots and your POH doesn't mention the final approach speed, then you should aim for 65 knots on final approach to ensure a well-prepared landing. The final approach can be one of the most difficult aspects of executing a short-filled landing, as it requires mastering a stabilized approach in this configuration. This is because during the final approach, your aircraft is on the back side of the power curve. In other words, you must use power to adjust your glide path and pitch to control your airspeed. It may take some practice to get comfortable with this technique, but a helpful tip is to fly a full pattern all the way down to short final, go around and try it again. Repeating this process a few times will allow you to become proficient in pitch and power adjustments, making you feel like a true pro. If there's an obstacle at the approach end of the runway, it's essential to adjust your approach technique accordingly. To clear the obstacle safely and avoid using too much runway before touchdown, it's recommended to fly a slightly steeper than normal approach angle. The steeper your glide path, the more runway you'll have available for a safe touchdown. When dealing with an obstacle near the end of the runway, opting for a steeper approach may be necessary. However, it's important to keep in mind that flying a steeper descent angle and having a higher than normal descent rate can pose some challenges. Specifically, you'll need to carefully judge your flare as you pitch up more to counteract the descent angle and smoothly bring the plane to a stop. When it comes to timing the flare on a short-filled landing, practice makes perfect. Flaring too late can result in a hard landing, while flaring too early can cause an early stall and a significant sink rate. These scenarios are less than ideal, so the key is to practice extensively to avoid them. With enough practice, you can hone your skills and perfect your timing to ensure a smooth landing. The more stable your final approach path, the more likely you are to make a good landing. After putting in the hard work, the moment of truth arrives, touchdown. As you approach the runway, it's important to gradually reduce your throttle to idle. Don't chop it. Make it gradual. However, it's crucial to note that the technique can vary significantly based on the type of airplane you're flying. If you're operating a lighter aircraft with light wing loading, you'll need to start reducing the throttle as you approach the runway threshold. Conversely, if you're piloting a plane with higher wing loading, you'll want to maintain the power a bit longer to avoid getting too slow or falling short of your desired landing spot. Rollout is the next step after touchdown, where you should use maximum aerodynamic braking to slow down your airplane. After touchdown, gradually pull back on the yoke, but be cautious not to lift off again. By increasing the aerodynamic braking, more weight is placed on the main gear, making the brakes more effective. This enables you to apply more pressure before the wheels lock up, if that's simulated. It's important to apply the brakes gently at first, and gradually increase the pressure to slow down. If you apply too much pressure when the ground speed is still high, and the wings are producing lift, the wheels could lock up. Keep applying the brakes until you're certain you've slowed down enough to make your taxi turn off, and then ease up gently. A smooth and controlled application of the brakes is crucial for a successful rollout. Guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, do me a favor and go ahead and click that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't, and leave me a comment below if this helped you. It means a lot to me. Here are some key areas to keep in mind when practicing short-filled landings, as they are common problems to avoid. 1. Excessive airspeed on final approach, leading to floating down the runway. 2. Steep descent rate on final approach, causing a hard touchdown. 3. Unstable approach where the descent rate alternates between being too fast or too slow and deviating above or below the glide path. 4. overuse of brakes during rollout resulting in a chaotic deceleration. And 5, rough nose wheel touchdown instead of controlling its landing, and remembering that the nose wheel isn't as robust as the main wheels. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't caught us yet on a Thursday or a Sunday, check out our Discord for some details on the group flights because we have an absolute blast multiple times a week. With that, happy flying.